Hi, my name is Joseph Sanders, and I'm a student at Thomas Edison State College. My student ID is 0376295. This video is for microcontrollers, lab number 6, I/O controls with interrupt applications. So I'm just going to dive straight in, and we're going to move this over here so you can see the program. And I'm going to try to get this camera focused in for you. Okay. Alright, so the objective is to change the pattern of the lights through the RB0 interrupts and change the speed of the flashing through the dip switch S13 settings. And there's 4 subroutines in this lab. So the first subroutine, if we come down here, the first subroutine is the push subroutine here. This is done directly after the interrupt is triggered on the falling edge of RB0. When the S14 switch is pressed and then released. When the interrupt is triggered, the program will move to the interrupt vector at address 0x0004, and it's going to execute the push subroutine. The push subroutine is basically setting the W and the status registers. Then, after it's done with the push subroutine, it's going to go to the interrupt RB0. Okay, so come down here, and here's the interrupt RB0 subroutine. This is the interrupt service routine. This increments the GPR main light count. Once the light count is incremented, it clears the interrupt flag and calls the pop subroutine. So once it clears this, it's going to go to the pop subroutine. So first subroutine, second subroutine, here's the third subroutine, which is labeled pop. The pop subroutine, it restores the W and status registers to what they were before the interrupt. And then after the pop subroutine is finished, it's going to go back to the point in the program before the interrupt was triggered. Alright. Then the main loop of this program is the SW test. And we come to here. Hopefully you can see that here. SW test. Okay. This is going to check the light count registers to see how many times the light count has been incremented, or the number of times of interrupt. If the light count has exceeded 3 times, then the program will clear the light count. So let's come down here. I'll explain this part here in just a second. But if you take a look at this, this is basically the light count arrangement. So for all lights flashing is 0. That's no lights flashing. For all lights flashing, 1. Green and red lights, 2. And yellow and red lights, 3. So right here, this is what I was talking about for the light count. It's going to check and see if the value has exceeded 3, because that's all we're interested in is no lights, all lights, green and red, yellow and red. So 0, 1, 2, 3. If it exceeds 3, it's going to clear that light count so that we don't have just erroneous information. Then the next step is it's going to check and see if the light count is value 3. If it is value 3, it's going to move to light sequence 3, which is here. If it's going to check and see if the light count value is 2. If the light count value is 2, it's going to move to light sequence 2. And here, if the light count is 1, it's going to go to light sequence 1. If it doesn't meet any of that criteria, then that's when it's going to go to no lights, which means basically it's going to extinguish all the lights. So as you can see here, for the no lights, move this up a little bit. As you can see here, for the no lights, it's putting 0 across port A and port B. And of course, with no lights on, the delay is kind of irrelevant because there's nothing to delay really. Now at the end of light sequence 3, 2, 1, and no lights, it's important to add this go to SW test, because you always want it to go back and do that test. If you don't have that there, you're going to run into problems, as I did early on in my program writing. Light sequence 3. So basically that's what we were talking about earlier. If it detects that, then it's going to go, and if you scroll back up here, we can see what light sequence 3 is. Light sequence 3 is yellow and red lights. So the very first condition we're going to have, once you actually see this over here on the lab or on the board, we're going to, at the very beginning, scroll back up for you to see, we're going to do a test of all the LEDs on this section here. And it's going to light all the LEDs, and then it's going to turn them off, and then it's going to go straight into the program. So back to where we were, the very first condition we'll encounter is no lights at all. Then when I hit S14, which is a push button switch, when I push that button and let it go, then that is going to trigger it to move from no lights to light sequence 3, which according to this, or excuse me, to all lights, light sequence 1, which is here. So that is all lights. It's going to alternate between the first 4 LEDs and the other 4 LEDs back and forth. When I push that switch again, then it's going to go to light sequence 2, which is green and red lights. And then when I push and let that button go again, it's going to go to light sequence 3, which is yellow and red lights. So we'll have no lights, then we'll have all lights, then we'll have green and red, and then we'll have yellow and red. Okay. Then this is the delay subroutine. This is going to add to our delay based on the previous settings and the settings of the dip switch. So if I have no dip switches on, that'll be 1 speed. If I have if I have one of the switches on, then that'll be a different speed. If I have the second dip switch on, then that'll be a totally separate speed. And you'll see that here in a second when I actually do this lab, or when we start this. Alright, so enough of that. Well, it's worth mentioning, well, I did kind of point it out already, but once the light sequence is determined, it puts the pattern onto the LEDs, and it calls the delay. And that was the 4th subroutine. The delay, like I said, it's based on how many switches are on. The MCU will add up the weights of those switches that I just pointed out. And let's go to that section. So this is where I'm talking about here. The MCU is going to add up based on which switch is on and off. So as you can see here, several different combinations to get different speeds for how long those lights are on or off. Alright, now if you slide over here, you can see I've already took the liberty of programming. So that is good. So let's come over here. And we'll see if we can get this thing working. Alright. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to reset this so you can see it do the initial test. The initial test, which is going to light all the LEDs. So let's reset this. Alright, so there we go. Lit all the LEDs. So up here, I don't have any of these switches up, so I'm going to hit this, and we should see the first pattern. Well, right now, this technically is the first pattern, no lights. So now we should see the next pattern, which is all lights, so it's going to alternate between the different lights. So let's go ahead and do that. You see how fast that's moving? That's because I don't have any of those switches up. Alright, I'm going to push the button again. Now it should go, if memory serves, it should go red, green, red, green. Kind of hard to see that, but moving pretty fast. But it is doing red, green, red, green. Then next, it should go between red and yellow when I push the button again. Red and yellow. Alright, so now when I push the button again, it should go back to no lights. Alright, so let's go ahead and turn the first switch on, and you'll see the difference in how long it takes for these LEDs, how long the LEDs stay on. How quickly the flashing goes. That's the way I should have worded it. Alright. So you see the switch is up, and I'm going to push the button. Alright, much slower. And then push the button again, and it should be green, red, green, red. And then push the button again, and green or yellow, red. Well, I didn't push it. Alright, there we go. And push the button again, and all lights are off. Alright, I'll turn the second switch on. So let's take a look and see what that was, speed-wise. Alright, so when we had 0 switches on, then it was a 200-second delay. With one switch on, it was 400-second delay. With the other switch on, it'd be a little different on the time. So let's see. I think that one's the 400-second delay. Then that one's the 600-second delay. And that one's a 900-second delay. So 200-second delay, or actually technically 0.200 seconds is how I should be saying it. So 0.200-second delay, then 0.400-second delay, then 0.7, if I can switch this, 0.700-second delay, and then 0.900-second delay. See how slower it got. Alright, and that concludes this lab. Thank you for watching.